Alright, it's about time for this. Let's talk about Spyro. The purple dragon was once voiced by Frodo and endorsed by Snoop Dogg himself. Spyro has had a history of ups and downs. Never was he higher though than on the PlayStation 1, where he was in a three-way battle against Crash and Laura to be the unofficial PlayStation mascot. Sure, he often ranked third in that contest, but that's some steep competition, let's be realistic. Crash was on top, and Laura was getting movies and stuff too. Spyro still etched a name for himself in a sea of platformers for a console, and a collectathon one at that. That's kind of unique. Well, for this generation of gaming, they were a dime a dozen, but on the PlayStation 1, they aren't as common as on the N64. PS1 had more linear platformers oftentimes. The only game that may have came close to that genre would maybe be Ape Escape that I can think of. Does Ape Escape count? I've never really played that game personally. Either way, they aren't common, on the PlayStation 1 anyway, and Spyro hedges that need for PS1 users, which is awesome. I personally love collectathon platformers, and I was eager to try Spyro out. That being said, my history with the Purple Dragon isn't all that great. I didn't know much about him growing up. I only saw Spyro in a couple of magazines here and there. Of course, I saw the Snoop Dogg commercials for a Reignited trilogy though, and while that didn't make me want to try it more or anything like that, they reignited Spyro. Similar to Crash, Spyro was really due for a remake of his original trilogy. I was happy for the Spyro fans, but I didn't necessarily get this right away, and I'm only now touching upon it. Wondering why? Well, I started reviewing Crash a couple years back by playing the first game in the Insane Trilogy, but I stopped soon afterwards. That would be because of Activision. Yes, thanks to Activision, I've had this game for some time now, and I've been sitting on it. Activision owns the rights to these characters, both Crash and Spyro, and they are absolutely an awful company. Soon after I started Crash, there was some lawsuit that happened. In support of these lawsuits, people boycotted Activision, and reviewing their games was a bit of a no-no. At least the ones that they could still make money off of. I supported the boycott. Activision is absolutely awful. Now, things have gone quiet, and Activision is being bought out by Microsoft. There's still some controversy going on, but I really want to play Spyro. So here's the deal. Recommend it or not, I'm not going to recommend you purchase the Reignited trilogy if you haven't already. DuckStation is an amazing emulator if you want to, play the original trilogy. And if you can stomach the graphics, I say go for it. They won't make money off of that, right? Still, I have already bought a physical copy before all the smoke with the company came out. That's the version I'm playing today if it wasn't obvious. Either way, I still want to talk about this game, so let's go and deal with the main dragon enemy. Let's take on Nasty Gnorc! Oh, this is going to make a lot of people mad. The main story of Spyro is kind of just bad. Yeah, I know I'm jumping the gun here a little bit. The dragons are on some TV program and they're asked about Nasty Gnorc and if they are concerned about him. It's obvious Gnorc is a bad guy of some type, but I'm only hearing about this guy right now, right? All I hear is the dragons talking nothing but smack about this guy. They mention he's a long ways off from their world, which is fine, but they also proceed to call him ugly and act like he isn't even a threat. Look, from my perspective, the dragons started this beef. Gnorc then turns all of them into crystal statues, as you do when, people are talking shit about you. However, Spyro is really small compared to other dragons. The spell can't seem to hit him properly. Oops. Spyro then goes to save the day. He frees the dragons, finds all the treasure Gnorc stole, and defeated the bad guy, saving the day, only for a silly little cartoon-style outro. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm well aware that this is all played for laughs. The plot isn't supposed to be taken seriously, but as a kid, I'd have thought the dragons were the bad guys. Luckily, the writing outside the plot is still pretty good. Spyro gets to talk to most of the guys that he frees, and yeah, there's a few generic, thanks for saving me, Spyro, from the dragons that you free, but most of the dialogue is actually pretty good. I hear the dialogue is better in the remake, but it's still nice to hear the dragons offer tips and chat regardless, and the actual dialogue is great when you're just talking Spyro v. the dragons. It's just the overall plot isn't the greatest. But hey, if you wanted a wisecracking dragon, here you go. Perfect. Alright, let's talk about the way the game looks, and it looks super cartoony. It's amazing. The game looks fantastic, even on the PlayStation 1, yes, but the Reignited trilogy really shined things up too. In the original game, the dragons looked more generic, but in the Reignited trilogy fixed that. Still, Spyro's design, the first boss humorously being a sheep, Sparks the dragonfly, all of this looks great. Level themes are great too. You have a desert, a swamp, a cloud city full of magic users, mountains, and Gnorc's more industrial lair. And look, I know I spread a lot of anger towards Activision, but the company that actually made the game is called Toys for Bob. Activision just kind of published it. Activision does own Spyro, and they make money off of him, but Toys for Bob is kind of their own separate thing. And if you don't believe me, well, they were acquired by Crystal Dynamics, and then Crystal Dynamics kind of hit bankruptcy, so eventually Toys for Bob was bought by Activision. However, they've actually spun off since last year, which is great, mostly due to all the lawsuits and negative press that Activision had. So while Toys for Bob no longer works directly under Activision, I think I can at least give them props for their graphic design and music, because the music is also really good. The music's bouncy, fun, it works really well with the setting they're in, and the enemies are designed for you to know quickly how to deal with them. Bigger enemies? Fire breath. Armored enemies? Head charge. Both? Well, you have to think a bit more. Even Sparks, the dragonfly companion that Spyro has, helps you keep track of your health instead of actually having a health bar. How ingenious is it to use a dragonfly as your health bar? Now you don't have to stop and look at, some overlay or anything like that. You just kind of look at your dragonfly, see what color he is, and now you know how much health you have. Yes, these are features of the original game, but these are features that still hold up really well and still work in the remake. Also, the voice acting is pretty good too. A lot of veterans, including Tom Kenny as Spyro, a voice he has certainly done before, returned for this particular game. There's another Collectathon platformer he voices the main character in too. Maybe I'll have to stop by at Bikini Bottom soon. He does a great job there though, as always. Like, seriously, have you guys actually looked up the filmography for Tom Kenny? Yes, he voices SpongeBob, he voices Spyro, but man, it is hard to actually pinpoint what voices he does. He doesn't always sound the same, unlike a lot of voice actors where you can, pick it right away. And yeah, he's actually really good at what he does, so just giving Tom Kenny some props there. So, getting into the gameplay, Spyro actually does have a couple of moves. He can breathe fire, a ranged attack that often wasn't as ranged as I thought it was. There are many times that the fire breath should have hit a target and just didn't, or at least it felt like it should have anyway. Horrible only on certain levels though, that makes you continuously fly, as those ones are timed. Outside of that, it's typically fine. He also has a head charge and a dodge roll that I didn't even know about and rarely ever use because of it. Spyro doesn't jump very high, but he can glide at normal levels, which is pretty handy if you learn how to use it. Now for the harder things. Spyro can charge over dash panel looking arrows to boost his charge faster and stronger, which can launch you gaining a lot of air. This is a bit of a challenge to really control though. He can also find a purple fairy to boost his fire breath, killing specifically tough enemies like giant spiders or ghost armors. This happens twice, I think? The only thing that's really difficult to control here is the supercharge. It isn't impossible to control, but I'm not going to lie. The most lives I've lost is trying to use these charges. However, that was stuff I was doing to not necessarily beat the game, but complete the game. In no way, shape, or form does the harder control part of that really stop you from beating the main game. However, I will say I'll be talking about it down the road, but it doesn't really stop you from dealing with Mr. Nasty at the end of the game, so yeah, you're all good if you don't really want to complete the game. The reason is because to simply beat a level, you have to find the exit and collect what you can from said level. Do this and you should have plenty of collectibles to move on. You'll need a specific enough of treasure, free dragons, and saved eggs to move from hub world to hub world. Also, the hub worlds count as levels too, but then they lead into other bite-sized worlds, or levels. Normally, a game like this has larger open levels in one large hub. This game splits into several hubs because, again, they're actually like levels. And I like the setup. Having these levels more bite-sized but still exploration heavy really works well. This really gives Spyro a very unique feel for collectathon aspects. Each hub has hidden flight level too, which can be rough for those, as those levels are timed. The flight levels have several objects you have to destroy or hit in a time limit to break as much as you can. You get gems for hitting all of the objects. You also have to hit all the objects in one run for 100% reasons, but if you're just trying to beat the game, this is just a chance for bonus gems. Actually, as long as you collect enough items, again, these are gems, free dragons, and captured eggs, you really are open to tackle the levels any way you want. I didn't even realize the first hub had a boss fight until near the end of the game. Yep, skip right past the first boss fight. Oops. But you can kind of do that too. You do eventually have to go back and beat all the bosses. But to go from level to level, you don't necessarily have to. The boss fights are all pretty simple affairs too. You target the boss, find a weak point, and usually after 3 times escalating the difficulty, the boss is down. As long as you're dodging their attacks perfectly fine, you should be able to take him on. Gnorc himself has you chasing him around just like one of the egg bandits. What a jerk. Overall, the levels are unique enough to stand out and fun enough to make you want more. Unless, of course, you decide to get all the treasure in the game. One level in particular is incredibly rough. I have no issues with the supercharge normally. Normally, it isn't hard to make the jumps that you need just to beat the normal level, and the special jumps aren't too bad very often. 2 levels of supercharged ramps made me look up walkthroughs just to figure out how the hell to make specific jumps though. One of those levels just sucks for this. There's this area in the swamp, a level which has like all treetops. Want to see all the treasures and dragons from this level? Good luck. Even knowing what to do, this level's supercharged jumps were super tricky to make, and with the supercharge not wanting to curve without camera and control issues, bleh. I hate this level for that reason alone. Not hard to beat, but actually completing it was one of the worst things ever in this particular game. Nothing drained lives faster than this. Yeah, the other level where I had to look up a walkthrough, which was another, supercharged level, was a castle, where you basically kind of had to circle it in an awkward motion kind of thing. It wasn't too bad once I figured out what you were supposed to do, but it was still kind of head-scratching enough to have to look up a guide. Yeah. I'm not going to complain too hard for that level. That level wasn't bad, outside of the having to look up a guide for it. Even the flight levels weren't as hard to complete, and they didn't really kill you for failing them either. Sure, they were challenging, sometimes kind of annoying, but not a life-draining one. Still, flight challenges can be very tricky figuring out a path that breaks all the objects in one go. You get a couple seconds for each object broken, added back onto your timer, but it's still pretty tricky. Overall though, is it worth going all the way? Sure is. You get a very fun final level raiding Nasty Gnorc's treasure hoard. Yeah, this is great. This level is really fun, learning how to get higher and fly higher, and even finding Gnorc's room of motivational posters was funny enough. You also unlock a final cutscene doing this in which Spyro has to face Gnorc again. Kind of. Ironic knowing he isn't the main enemy in the next game, right? Anyway, there's also hidden skill points to find which unlocks concept art. I only ever found one on my own. I didn't go out of my way to get them per se, I just kind of accidentally found it. And you basically get them for beating boss fights as well. Even after getting platinum, there are still some secrets in this game. Nice. Overall, there is one level that is a pain to get all the secrets and treasure in. Only one that stuck out above the rest. Outside of that, the secrets are great. The level designs are top-notch, the gameplay is fun and challenges you without ever adding new moves to your arsenal, and the game is charming as all hell. The writing is humorous, but overall the story makes the dragons look like the bad guys in this, which is my only real gripe in my review. Overall, Spyro, the first one, gets a 9 out of 10. This game is amazing, and out of the first games of the PS1 Kings, this game is easily my favorite. Spyro, you really did impress me. You held up well over the years, but that's all the time I have to talk about Spyro. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, yeah, all of that stuff. Really, it does help me, guys. Subscribe for more comment, hit the bell. Yeah, I 100% of this game for you guys too, so come on now. Take care, my minions.